Wine is a mocker, beer is a brawler, and whoever staggers because of them is not wise. Proverbs 21.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to the Go to Hell podcast. Strong opinions, weekly held about Christianity, the church, and beer. Oh, that's the sound of freedom in stereo right there. I'm your host, Tim Curley, and I'm joined by my co-host, Colton Pierce. Colton, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Just got off of a 3-day weekend. My sister's birthday is actually on Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, and so it's always a good time, and it always is a good reminder. Like, you know, I have family, and so it was always something that we acknowledged growing up in our household. And it's so weird to me that my wife, like, she went to a private Christian school, and they don't celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and so I can't tell if Tim's reaction is to the beer or if it's to the.
No, I knew that about Audrey.
It's an important day, and I like to read some of his work on those days and stuff, and just kind of reflect on. I usually read letters from Birmingham.
Not Audrey, your sister.
A letter from Birmingham jail, and so it's good stuff. Just a good reminder of just, you know, calls to action and stuff that we face in our world. So yeah. Anyways, how are you doing?
Doing well. I had I didn't really have a holiday. I had sort of, well, yeah. I mean, I did some work. Of course, there was 2 NFL games going on too. NFL apparently doesn't care about dead black men. And then wife and I did a few errands in the afternoon.
Nice.
So I had to pick up a few things at Lowe's to repair around the house. So, but otherwise doing well. I'm mostly by myself this week. My mom's still staying here, although I'm moving her out Friday. So,
Dang.
Yeah, it's time for her to roll her own old bones back to her apartment. No, we're gonna move her back on Friday. We're talking about doing it tomorrow, but my week's already slammed, so pushed it to Friday. But my wife's out of town. She's on a business conference right now for basically a full day. She'll be back tomorrow night, and then Thursday morning she's wait, is she gone Thursday? Anyway, she comes back Wednesday and is gone Thursday morning, or back Thursday night and gone Friday morning. But she's basically gone all week. So when she gets back from her business conference, she's jumping on a cruise ship with her mother, her sister, and our daughter. So she'll have a nice girl time with the family. So that'll be cool.
Nice.
All right.
All right, so we're going to wrap up our last 10 questions tonight, and possibly get to that hot topic that we discussed last week. We'll see.
Although go ahead.
Number 40.
Can I just say next year when we do this, I think it would be nice for me to have these in advance so I can think about my answers.
I kind of like off the cuff.
These are supposed to be kind of meaningful and thoughtful, and I'm just
fair.
pulling it out of my ass.
That's
And
fair.
then
we'll be more insightful next year.
I think this is just you like it because you sound more insightful than I do, and I'm like, I don't know. It's okay. Anyway,
I don't feel like I sound that much more insightful. And the hard part for me is actually I'm just like, how do I not say, yeah, my kid for every single answer?
yeah. So, you and me, but it's a different thing for me.
All right. Number 40. Did we ask this question last week? This is always the hard part. I don't remember if I ended on 40 or if I got all the way through. What career opportunities do you want to create for yourself?
Well, I'm kind of locked in what I can do this year.
Tim's always like, I'm locked in.
But I can start, what I'm hoping to do this year is to really start gearing up and coming up with plans for 2025. So that's my answer.
Cheers to 2025.
Cheers to 2025. Get back to me in a year.
I'll make sure you have the questions in advance. Career opportunities for me. Man, I went to this training over the weekend for water polo, and man, I cannot stop thinking about water polo. Like ever since I went, like there's just gears turning in my head. I think when I was in season, it was just really frustrating. There were good things all throughout the season. I loved it. But I dealt with some issues this last year, and I'm really looking forward to this year because a lot of those players are gone that were causing me issues. But the boys that I have are looking to soak up information and grow and develop. And so that, if you know, is a huge huge thing when it comes to teaching and to helping athletes grow. The problem is, and this is something that I have to be honest with about my team, is that there's not a whole lot of natural athleticism with this group. So I haven't been shot down yet on a lot of my plans that I have for the moment as far as the growth that I want to see for them. And they will take whatever I say and they will try to put it in practice to the best of their abilities. But ultimately, at the end of the day, there's not a whole lot of natural athleticism there. So they may put their heart and soul into it, and they may get killed by some team of natural athletes because they're just able to sling the ball around and chuck it into the back of the net. So, like, I'm thinking of my team, and I'm like, I got like one natural athlete, and I'm like, oh man, this will be interesting. So, but I have lots of hopes. I learned how to not necessarily coach better, but just hone my coaching abilities over this weekend. It's good. And talking with these, and what was also really reassuring to hear was I talked University of Pacific's head coach. So Fresno State's head coach for the girls program. She was a U.S. She was an Olympian. She won gold. The UC Davis head coach was an Olympian as well. Played at USC, and so the U.S. men's hasn't won gold, but
They're still really good though.
Yeah, still hit the top of their game. But University of Pacific's head coach, and then this other guy who was there, he coaches high school, but the University of Pacific's coach and this guy that coached high school, they're both really talented, but they both talked about the fact that they're like, yeah, I played water polo when I was in high school. Like, that was it. Like, that's when I came in. I didn't play in college, but it was just like I had such a passion and desire to help and improve. And University of Pacific, they were runner-up in the NCAA championships last year. So it was just kind of cool to hear him talk. I want to grow and develop in that area. And I was like, how do I become like that? How do I help my team grow and develop the way that you help University of Pacific's grow? Because it's not like UOP is not bringing people in from our
right.
No, like USC, easy peasy. One, you already had the big brand name. UCLA, even Stanford, Cal, Berkeley, like those are easy.
Yeah, those four
those are
schools
easy draws. Like
Yeah.
you don't have to promote that. This motherfucker's in Stockton, being like, yo, you should come out. Like, and how do you build a championship runner-up team out of that? So, and I'm like, and nobody would discredit them if they lose to UCLA, Stanford, or USC. But the fact that he's been able to, in his time there, be runner-up like 3 or 4 times, and then also be in the quarterfinals a couple of different times is very impressive for, again, somebody who's working out of Stockton. He's taken a couple guys out of Clovis. Davis has taken a couple of people out of Clovis, and again, they're trying to compete. Davis is now going to have one of the top 3 teams in the nation this next year. It'll be interesting to see what they do. But just really cool stuff. And so the UOP guy actually asked coaches that if they were interested in talking with him more, to send him an email, and he would invite us up there to go see him do his stuff, chat with him all day, talk about analytics, and then see what they do for a program. And so I sent him an email Sunday night. I haven't gotten a response back, but hopefully within the next week or two. And if not, I'm gonna ring the bell again. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, because I'm serious about it. Like I said, I've been laying awake at night, just like thoughts of water polo in my head, which isn't terribly good, just because, you know, it's not my main career. There's, you know, my athletic director did tell me this year, and not like in a reprimanding way, but he did say that, you know, don't let the $5,000 job get in the way of the $75,000 job. Like,
Well, that's, you know what? I admire that honesty and direction from the athletic director. It's both liberating and it's both grounding. So, you know, that's really good advice. That said, I think it's, look, your $75,000 job has a lot of restrictions to it. A lot of stuff is you being dispensed things that you've got to teach and do, and so there's a limited amount of professional growth that can go on there. And I think, yeah, I would love to be in a position where I'm up at like 11 o'clock at night, honestly, and can't fall asleep because I'm just like visions of work, sugar plums are dancing in my head, and I'm just champed at the bit to get up and go to work the next day and tackle the world. So,
well, and that's the shitty part, is that I'm now like in great anticipation. Like, this is like, I don't get to work with athletes for another like 3-4 months. I'm like,
I know this is the good time to, you know,
yeah,
work on the program and things you want to do. So you know, that stuff will spill over if when these kids come back and meet you in the pool deck or in a classroom and you're throwing at them all kinds of stuff that you weren't throwing at them in the previous year, they're going to be like, oh wow, like we're taking this to a whole new level. So you know, I think it's great.
we are taking it to a whole new level.
And I think those kind of coaches, USC, UCLA in particular, but even Cal and Stanford, they get the pick of the litter, not only in the United States but in the world. They get whoever. And so there's plenty of quote unquote leftovers, which is no disrespect for the kids that go to they're, in fact, in a lot of cases, they're probably overlooked because they don't have their last name isn't a
itch.
It's not a some kind of Slovakian or Croatian name, and so they're perfectly capable of playing, and they go off and find a home at Davis or Pacific and whatnot. But in a lot of ways, you know, these guys are having to. I think they have to work harder because they're putting together a team. They're not putting together the best talent, and so. No disrespect to the UCLA and USC coaches and stuff, but you know, these guys are really having to work, which is, you know, what you do when you're in high school. So there's a famous adage, the old Oakland, LA Raiders owner who started out as a coach. Most people don't know. He's actually a coach before he was an owner. I think he coached for the for the Rams, one of the LA teams way back in the day, and then Al Davis became the famous owner of the Raiders, and he would always tell his general manager, make sure you tell those coaches they have to coach like high school coaches. And his point always was, you got to coach whoever you got. Don't come back to me and tell me the defense isn't going to be good because we don't have the right players. You have who you have, coach them up, make the best of it. There's no excuses.
Right.
And too many college and NFL coaches are like, well, I just don't have the right guy. I don't have the guy to fit my system. It's nope. Make it work. It work. Maybe amend your system to work with the players you have. And that's what really good high school coaches is. You know, unless you're a Catholic school, as we've talked about on here. But most public schools is like, all right, this is what I got. I like running this kind of system. You know what we're going to have to do? We're going to have to run a different kind of offense or defense because that's the kind of strength I have.
Well, and that was actually the response of a couple of coaches in the room over the weekend, where it was just like some coaches were just like, well, yeah, so like, but what do we do about the kids that just you know, but they don't want to try, or, you know, like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, do you allow them to do that? Like, I was like, I'd rather, like, I was like, I'm not saying you kick them off the team, but do you allow them to do that?
Yeah.
You know, and it's not just a sarcastic comment. It's just, it's a conversation with that kid where it's like, you know, I don't know. I ran into several issues this year, but if I ran into an issue with that kid and he was like, well, you know, like this kid has an FFA thing and a blah, 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 blah. And like, you don't get that in college. And they were kind of like coming up with some excuses like that. And don't get me wrong, the coaches were like, yeah, like we recruit, so we pick what we want. But then they come here and then they're like, I've got work. I've got a family thing. I've got blah.
Right.
And I've got blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it happens.
Right.
It happens all the time.
Sure.
And it's like, our problems are not as like, it was almost like they were like, yeah, our problems really aren't as different as you think. So I get to choose these kids that you think are like, oh yeah, we want it and this is what we want. But then we're also trying to elevate them to a Division I level at that point. And to which that is also 10 times harder than they've ever had to work in the high school level up until that point, because they're having to now meet times that they weren't necessarily, they thought they were an all-star swimmer, and then they get here and they're getting their ass kicked.
Yeah.
Like up and down the pool. And so this is a kid that's been cruising and been lazily swimming for the last 4 years. And then out of nowhere, they're asked to meet these times and they're like, that's impossible. And they're like, really? Everybody else on the team is fucking doing it. So these kids are having to bust their ass and to be able to make the team. And it's just, it's one of those things where it's like, our problems aren't as far apart as some people make it out. Yes, there are parts of me where it's like, I need somebody with a fucking pulse to walk on my team, you know? Because you don't even have to know how to swim. I'll teach you, and I will. But greatness can come from that. I was like, we watched a kid improve so much over 1 year, just over the fact that Hodge had him on his varsity team last year as a sophomore, when the year before, the kid couldn't leave the lane line. And he put him on it because that kid worked so hard.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that kid.
Every single day.
We had a kid who
so
come out
happy
and,
about
and
that.
couldn't swim. I was like, what?
Yeah, we had a kid that couldn't swim. We were literally teaching him how to swim. And then 1 year later, gets put on the varsity team. And it's not like there wasn't 20 other kids that could have possibly been on the varsity team. It wasn't like we don't know who to pick. It was, that kid is going to be on the varsity team because he's playing at that skill level and he wants to improve.
When you're a coach, when you're a successful coach, this is where I think sports are, if they're done correctly, are invaluable. Where sports and business or any kind of organization, a church for that matter, whatever, like the American Red Cross. If you want to succeed, you set down what the boundaries are, what the guidelines are, what our purpose is, where we're going, what our values, all those things. They're down on paper. Everyone knows them. And then, and then the hard part is holding people accountable. And the holding people accountable part is willing to go, all right, Stevie, if you don't want to show up at 6 a.m. and swim, then you can leave the team.
Right.
And Stevie looks at you and in his he's thinking in his mind, well, coach doesn't really mean that, because if coach says that, then there's only 8 kids left, and we can't really play without 8 kids, so he doesn't really mean it. And then you look at him and say, Stevie, pack up your bags and leave. And what that does for everybody else who's there is, oh wow, he's serious, which means I need to up my game. And what it means for parents who value that is, this guy really enjoys things. And over time, people start figuring out, you know what? The water polo team plays, and they play really well, and they win. But just so you know, like, Coach Pierce doesn't mess around. And you just weed out the Stevies a couple years later who want to show up and test you and see whether or not they actually have to show up. And then the kids who really thrive and want to perform, they actually like, you know what? I'm going to go play this thing. I've been playing this sport, but so it all works out. And you and I have had these conversations offline where I think you're in a great situation where your administration does support you.
Yeah.
And the fact that they've said, like, remember, teaching's your main thing. They've got athletics in a proper perspective for a high school. But that also gives you the freedom to be like, boys, I'll play with 7 if I have to play with 7 if I'm not going to put up with riffraff. So just go somewhere else.
Right. Exactly.
And you don't. The thing with playing, choosing. There was a coach, a legendary coach. This guy had been coaching for decades. He left California, came back when I was coaching. Towards the tail end when I was coaching, he'd come back, taken over a team that had a high school team that had not won in a long time. Took it over, cleaned house. It wasn't some tiny little school. He played with 11 players total.
Wow.
So 8 kids are going both ways.
Right.
And you're thinking, well, how did they run practice? They ran half of the side, half from center to the other side, basically on both sides of the ball. That's all they did. So it was one side versus one side. Then they flipped the other side. So the other side of the line, it was basically one half of the ball. That guy, first year he took over, turned it into a winning program. Within 2 years, they won a state championship.
It's insane.
Because he knew what he wanted to do. He knew what winning looked like. He stuck to it. He didn't care how many kids showed up. And eventually more kids showed up and more kids showed up. You know, he didn't win that state championship with 11 kids on the roster. But the kids who figured out, like, okay, there is something to be said about I'm going to go out if we win. And I don't blame kids for that.
No, yeah, 100%.
But that takes weeding out the field and letting people know, and then when those kids who want to just show up and win, letting them know, like, all right, here's your contract for playing for my water polo team. This is what's expected of you.
Right.
You break these rules, you're off the team. As long as you follow these rules, you're on the team. Okay, so that's in the question number 1.
So basically, I'm
actually,
trying to make improvements on coaching. So
that's great.
Looking to make career growth opportunities there.
If you're listening to this at home, I think the lesson is, I think the ideal situation is if you're a manager. If you're an owner, you're an owner. But the best situation if you're a manager is the person you're working with allows you to act like an owner, like own your division. You have free will to do things within some set boundaries and stuff like that. If you have that, that's your New Year's resolution should be, how can I improve? What can I do? I can make this better. How can I improve the life or the camaraderie of my employees? That kind of thing. Great businesses even with the mid management, not the top management, people feel like they have ownership of it and have some freedom to do what they want to improve their department or whatever. So I think it's great.
41. How will you make this year matter?
I don't want this to sound morbid or anything. I am not someone who sits around thinking I'm getting old.
Yeah.
I'm 50 years old. But I don't really look at most people who find out how old I am, particularly when they have grandchildren. They flip out. They don't think I am. I think they probably think I'm about 10 years younger.
It's because Tim never had to raise infants. So.
That's true. But although my wife raised 3 and they think she's younger as well. But no, there's probably some truth to that. It's also because I don't dress like I'm 50-something. But I also just don't think I'm like 50-something. If I did, I don't think I'd be hanging around with you and Eric and some of these other. I mean, it's not because I'm cool and hip and stuff like that. It's just
It's because you're cool and hip. It's okay. You can say it.
No, I don't think of myself as 50. And when I thought of myself as 40, I had to remind myself that I was 40. When I was 30, I'm having to constantly remind myself, oh yeah, like you're kind of getting up there. You're gonna have to start thinking about the end. And 50, early 50s is not near the end, but it's to the point where I want to start being more very.
You're gonna go buy a Corvette, aren't you?
No. No, that's Andy. I want to start being very intentional, not only with my relationships, but people who just I have short-term relationships with where I think I can make an impact, and be very not open in a douchey evangelical way where we're putting ridiculous fishes on our car, or what I saw the Jesus is the answer someone put all over their car, in very superficial, in your face ways, but impacting a person's life by helping them with their finances or giving them advice about something. And if they're not a believer, letting them know, hey, just so you know, I'm a Jesus follower and this is where I'm coming from. Because I think that does matter. Because otherwise we're just secular humanists if we just go through life being like, basically like, I'm going to do what Jesus tells me to do, but we're just leaving a trail where people are just like, see, good, he's just a good person. We don't want to wear it on our sleeve and just be like, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. But if we're not letting people know that we're acting and thinking this way because Jesus calls us to, again, we're just like some version of secular humanism or a guru follower, or just what our current culture in the United States is captured with, is just being, am I a good person? I'm a good person. I'm going to judge the fact that I do all these things. I feed the homeless and that makes me a good person. Or, I tip well every morning when I go to Starbucks. I'm a good person. I don't hawk at people in the parking lot. No, we need to leave a legacy with people feeling like they got touched by Jesus through me. And I guess if I'm going to be like overly dramatic by it, but I think that's what we should be doing. So I'm at the point now where every year I want to be very intentional about that.
Yeah.
And that calls for me to step out of my comfort zone. Like a couple weeks ago, I think I talked about on a podcast where I came across a homeless woman and went out of my way. And it wasn't just enough to like provide her food and some blankets and stuff like that. To just leave her there and just not ask her what her name is and try to make her feel like she's a person, and say like, well, I'm out here because Jesus calls me to do this, which I always try to do with, I had one guy that I helped out who was homeless, and he just assumed, he said, you're a Christian, right? And I said, I was kind of taken aback, and I said, yes. And he goes, yeah, Christians are only people who help me like this. And I was actually kind of taken aback by that, because there's plenty of atheists who like to help the homeless. But he was like, yeah, Christians are only people who treat me like this. And I thought, okay, that's actually really nice to know. So I think that's where I'm at, not only for this year, but for other years. It's just really trying to go out of my way to make sure people feel like, if Tim's not Tim because Tim's a good guy, but Tim's a good guy because he's a Jesus follower. And then all the shitty stuff Tim does is, sorry, Jesus.
I quote the movie Wreck-It Ralph when he says, just because you are a bad guy does not make you bad guy. And Wreck-It Ralph says, thanks, Satan. Because it's Satan that's talking to him. When he's in the evil person support group that he's in. Anyways, if you've never seen the movie, then you don't know. But anyways.
Can I just stop for a second? Do you taste like kind of a pepper note when you drink this? It's like a little twingy spicy on the back.
No, I don't.
Nope.
So.
Okay.
It's my third beer that night, so 1852.
Oh.
Yeah, how I will make this next year matter. I think I talked about this before where well, actually, I think the way that I'm going to make this next year matter is, and I try to do this every year, but man, I do feel, I love my daughter, but I do feel my social life shrinking.
Yep.
As I have her. And I don't know if my wife has made me feel any of that burden or whatever, but it's just more of the obligation to be there. It's kind of one of those hard things. And I think maybe we did talk about this on the show where, you know, there's this idea out there that, you know, when you get married, oh, you're locked up. Or, you know, you got this ball and chain and you can't do the things that, you know, you want to do or whatever. Now, there are certain things that maybe you wanted to do that are no longer in play. Those were never on the table for me, so that's
Right.
that was never something I was going to be doing. And yeah, I do feel the obligation and a responsibility to my daughter and all that kind of stuff. So the way that I'm going to make this next year matter for me is just really be intentional about the time that I do have to be social with the people that I want to see on a regular basis. Of just being like, hey, this is something that I think maybe at one point I took for granted, but just really be grateful for those moments and just enjoy them. I just a couple weeks ago, I said it a couple weeks ago that I play video games, and a couple weeks ago, me and Alec, one of my friends, were able to reconnect on video games, and we've been playing video games the past couple of nights together, and that's been really enjoyable. Because if I'm being honest with you, when it comes to video games, I don't really play them for like I don't play solo video games. It's not really something that I enjoy doing. I do it more for a social thing of a team aspect or whatever. And so
Yeah.
me and Alec have been connecting and hanging out and playing a video game together, and that's been fun for the two of us to just kind of reconnect, because we hadn't played a video game together since August. So there's been about, you know, like 4 months off where we haven't really been, or no, it was probably October. October was more where we fell off, and so it's only been a few months, but just really was missing that connection, because again, before October, me and Alec, and this is what I tell my wife, is where she's like, I don't understand how you can do that, and I was like, but you don't understand, like it's 2 hours, because it's about 2 hours or an hour and a half that I play, of me just hanging out with my friend every single night, where it's just, you know, hey, how was your day at work today? I
Right.
mean, this is the same questions that I ask my wife or whatever, you know, but it's somebody who's going through shit, and you're just like, man, dude, that fucking sucks. And you know, we blow steam and we be stupid and whatever, but I think now it means a lot more, where it's just like, I want to be intentional about that, where it's, you know, it's time that I appreciate and cherish a lot more. And again, that may sound cheesy or whatever, but it's something that means something to me. So I mean, like the past 2 weeks I was at Kauai. I hadn't been at Kauai in like 3 months.
Oh, long time. And it was great to have you there.
Yeah, and it was good, and it was just like, I'm just enjoying this moment. I'm enjoying this. I'm not depressed or I'm not anything like that, but it's just, you know, I'm enjoying the time that I get to spend with friends, because I don't know when it's going to happen again, if it's going to happen again, you know. So just being intentional about that, and that feels really good. And I think that that's going to be the best way to make this year matter.
Children does change social connections. My wife had her first two children basically before she was 20, and then she had her third about 10 years after that. So we were kind of in this weird spot at the previous church we were at, where we had our friend groups. We had kind of two friend groups. We had one group that was all about 10 years older than us, and their kids were either graduating as our youngest was going through school, or had graduated. And then the couples that were all basically our age, maybe like 4 or 5 years younger, but kind of in the same friend group, their kids were all much, much younger, because they had waited later to start. And so we were kind of in this strange in the middle world where, you know, the friends we were hanging out most with are 10 years older. All their kids have already done like Little League baseball and all that kind of stuff, and the ones below haven't really started all of that. And so you know, it creates issues where you're just like, you're kind of maybe finding friends that are seasonal friends of like, okay, we're, babies playing sports and these are our friends here. And so but you still maintain those other friendships. And, one of our friends, Jay, was part of that group that was 10 years older. And we've just maintained friendships even as all of our kids are out of the house. Yeah. His kids are all out of the house. But even so, I mean, I've got a granddaughter who's 6 now. And so I know that within a couple years, probably Saturday soccer is going to kick in. And so I'm not going to be available on Saturdays like it used to be and stuff like that. And so there's just these seasons where kids, grandchildren take up your time. But, of your group, you're the only one who's had a kid now. So if I were you, I'd just start, as long as the fair Audrey agrees, just start saying, bitches, if you want to come see me, come to my house. You have a nice house. Show up at your house. We'll hang out at your house.
Yeah, and I mean, like, so far, like, again,
we can come see you. Oh, Godfather Colton, let's come see the baby.
Yeah, no, well, and here was something that we had talked about was the way the dynamic works is really we're all Reese, whether she likes it or not, that's my daughter's name. She's not going to be the center of our lives.
And no child should. We talked about it on the last episode, that is the worst thing you can do. Children need to know that mom and dad love each other the most, because I think then that instills in them somewhere what a healthy relationship, when they're looking for a healthy relationship, is as well.
Well, and we absolutely love her. There's no doubt. And where it's, but also,
but a male or a female child knowing that mom loves them more than dad is absolutely destructive. And too many families have fallen down that, like, we've got to do everything possible and we're going to sacrifice everything and blah, 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 blah. And I love the sentiment, but no, that's not how this works.
Well, and for us, and something that's been really important for us, and as far as Reese's, is that as long as my friends are okay with it, which none of them have ever griped about it so far, and you haven't really like griped about it either, or I mean, you haven't given permission or anything either way, is that if you're a friend of mine, my kids will only ever call you, as far as I'm concerned, they will only ever call you uncle and aunt. They're not going to call you Mr. or Mrs. They're going to call you Uncle Tim. They're going to call you Uncle Nolan, Uncle Eric, Uncle Alec. And that's what we call them around you. And we tell Reese, we're like, hey, Uncle Alec's coming over today.
Yeah.
And like, he's going to see you. Because I remember that about my dad's running buddies when he was in college and when we lived up north. Like, I still call Uncle Studa today.
Right.
And when I was a kid, I legitimately thought he was my uncle. Like, but that was the way that they treated him. He'd show up at our house to go run with my dad or whatever. Old college buddies, but I don't even know what Studenake's doing now, but he's something that was important to our lives, and that was something that meant something to us as kids. We were always excited to see Uncle Studa. That was something more than just, oh, Mr. Studa's coming over.
Right.
It was Uncle Studa. And to where that's the kind of relationship that I want my daughter to have with my friends, where it's something that she's excited to, and those are family. Because I do view my friends as family.
Absolutely. And it also instills with them, someone like me, the level of responsibility too. So,
well, I'm glad you feel it. I haven't said that. I mean, this is on the podcast, so now it's recorded. Sorry, Alec, for unleashing this out to everybody. But Alec felt such a personal responsibility to help with Reese that he's still planning on moving to Visalia to be closer to Audrey and I to help out with Reese. We haven't even asked him to do anything or whatever,
Wow.
but he just feels he just feels a personal responsibility towards us. And like I told Audrey about that. Another friend had told us about this, and like it touched Audrey. Like Audrey was like, she like almost cried because like Alec was like so adamant about coming over and just being like, I want to be in this kid's life. Like this is really exciting, and I just want to be there for them. And he was adamant. He was at our house like the first week that she was born, and he held her for like an hour and a half or whatever, and
Wow.
just wanted to be there with her. And so that's a really cool moment where, again, like I said, it takes away from my social life, but at the same time, there's been a lot of good things that have come from it. And so just getting those really intentional moments from that is really awesome. So,
Well, I will say again, our friend Jay, he had 2 kids. We've had different seasons where things aren't in line. Where our youngest son's Jeff is going into junior high and high school at the same time. His kids are graduating from college and going off and starting professional lives and all that. And we're still seeing each other here and there and connecting. And my point is, meaningful relationships, friendships I have the same high school buddies I've been friends with since, sophomore year of high school. And I haven't seen a lot of them in 3 or 4 years, one like 5 or 6 years. I guarantee you all of their wives would be rolling their eyes within like 20 minutes as soon as we all got into a room, because all of the jokes and the inside jokes would get started just because, that's how meaningful relationships are. And so there's just a way of distance doesn't get in the way of those things.
right.
And so, I mentioned when we were doing last week's, what were we doing? Looking forward, trying to be more intentional with long-term relationships. That's just something I want to do. So, I feel like I'm being a better friend, but it's not like I feel like I'm losing friends or people are upset with me. It's just trying to be more intentional and all that kind of thing. But, I wouldn't worry moving, down the years of we're separating. It's just how life is. So
That's how it goes.
the real thing is all your other friends need to get their shit together and start having babies. So you're not the only one. That's the thing.
Wow, now you sound like their mom. Next, you're going to be asking them if they're gay.
Dan Trobaugh did say he did lay down a rule once that if you're still single and over 30, you might be gay. So,
which is funny because if any of you are East Coast listeners, you're like, what? Sorry, Northeast. I was like, if you're in Georgia or the Carolinas, you're like, I don't understand what you're talking about. Everybody gets married at 17 here. And even the Pacific Northwest also. You don't get married until you're much later. 42. How will you help others this year?
We're gonna do that through the financial class we teach at our church, or lead. Actually, next week I'm supposed to meet with somebody personally. My wife and I are supposed to meet with somebody who's going through something, and then we're doing something interesting in the spring coming up in April, I believe. Rather than we used to do Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace class. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you've probably heard of it. If you haven't, it's like, I think it's 11, 13 weeks. It's basically mainly how to get out of debt. And then once you've gotten out of debt, it's how to budget, invest your money, what kind of insurance to buy, et cetera, plan for the future, plan for retirement, all that kind of thing. And our church transitioned to something else for a variety of reasons, but transitioned to something else that's basically somebody who's taken Dave Ramsey and some other things and condensed it down to 5 or 6 weeks. I should know because we teach it. It's called I was broke, now I'm not. It's basically the same thing. How to get out of debt, manage your money, budget, plan for the future, plan to where you've got more money than you need, and really using it either to leave a legacy with your children or other people. And our church came to us for the spring and said, "Hey, how'd you like to lead the class?" And we said, "Sure." And then the guy at our church who's in charge of basically small groups came back and said, "Yeah, I noticed spring break and another vacation are right in the middle of your class, so that's probably not going to work. How about we do a 2-day? Basically, we're going to do a 2-day like TED Talk with Q&A,
Yeah.
and basically
Nice.
we're going to break down this class into just 2 probably like Sundays or Wednesdays or something, where we lay out what the class is, let people ask questions, we answer them, and so that we can either in like a 2-part seminar answer the kind of give them the kind of answers they're looking for, or get them to show up in the fall when we do the full class. Because again, the class is called I Was Broke, Now I'm Not. And I would say every year we teach this class, we've done it 3 times now, at least half the class doesn't have a debt problem. They have a I don't know what to do with my money problem. We had a couple one year. They were both teachers. They had just saved a ton of money for their wedding. They'd had their wedding, and so now they're like, we don't know what to do with all the money because we still have them, all the money we're saving. We're still operating like that, so we're just like saving money to nowhere. So we need to know. I think the more I do the class, I've found out with all of the money schools have been thrown and all the things they're teaching, no one's teaching like how to manage money. I mean, I've even thought about turning this curriculum that we do for adults into like a high school curriculum and selling it to all the school districts around there, where you just like, it's not a full semester, but it's part of some like home ec or something, where you go in and like, we're going to do some basic budgeting. And
Well, it's technically what you're supposed to be taught in your economics.
well, it doesn't seem to be taught very well because no one does it. And that might just be because these kids are being overwhelmed by American consumerism. I don't know. But anyway, the class is well beyond just getting out of debt. It's maintaining a budget and figuring out where to, if you hopefully you're managing your budget and you got money, where do you put it? How do you invest for the future and all that kind of thing. So pouring more into that and being more intentional and hopefully more impactful in that. That's my answer.
Nice. So how will I help others this year? It's always hard as a teacher. I feel like on a regular basis I'm working with people, or I'm working with young people and trying to help them through, this stage of life. My job is so much more than just assigning work and grading it, teaching work or teaching stuff and assessing their knowledge on it. I get kids that approach me about their problems and what's going on. God, I've apparently been a relationship counselor over the past couple of days. These girls are coming in and telling me about their problems, and I tell them that they're terrible. I do. There's a girl, and you guys can report me for this if you want. A girl came in and she told me her whole plan. She had this idea of this boy didn't want her, and so she was like, so this is what I'm gonna do to like get him back or whatever. And I was like, she told me the whole plan, and I gave the same look that I'm giving right now, and I just
severe skepticism.
I just said, that is the dumbest thing I have heard in my life, and trust me, I've heard some really dumb things. And she was like, "What? No, that's genius. You should." And then her friend was like, "You should be supportive, Pierce." And I was like,
No,
that was dumb. That also sounds manipulative. And also, I was like, don't get me wrong, people shouldn't necessarily always give relationship advice. And actually, what I gave was not relationship advice; it was almost anti-relationship advice.
Which is also helpful to high school.
Which I said, you should just focus on yourself, and if somebody doesn't want you, you walk away and leave it the hell alone.
Amen. That's the most healthy. Yeah, that was what I always tried to tell my kids when they were upset. I was like, all right, then move on.
Yeah.
And believe me, that's not how I handled things until I was in my late 20s. But, you know, that was a learned lesson of, all right, they don't like me, move on.
I always believe that what you need to do first, and I was like, is you got to focus on yourself. Go and focus on yourself. And I was like, and actually that was something that I took a relationship class in college where if you sit there and focus on yourself, people will come to you. Like there's like this weird thing where it's like, if you're just being you and you're just doing whatever it is that you do, people are attracted to that confidence that you have in yourself and your ability to move forward. And so that's like one of my biggest advices, or the biggest advice that I can give to young people is where it's like, and especially teenagers, where it's like, I was like, you're focusing on a lot of other shit right now. Like, you're like, how do I navigate a relationship? Like, this is giving me social status or whatever.
Right.
Really what you need to be doing is working on your self-confidence and not putting your self-confidence being reliant upon other people.
That's what I told my kids when they would get over a breakup, or they would get over a series of breakups usually. And I was like, how can I find a good boyfriend, a girlfriend, or a spouse or something? And my advice always was, you need to get yourself oriented where you're fine alone, where you are comfortable being alone.
Well, in this student...
And they're like, why? I want to... And I said, because that is when you're willing to quickly assess, like, that guy's a loser, that girl's a loser, that person's overly needy, that person, like, and just be like, thanks, I had a great meal, the drink was great, I'm moving on, and not feel bad about it, and not feel for a second like, oh, but I feel alone, and it would be really nice to have, someone that I could hang out with. Just like, no, I'm good.
Yeah,
I got other friends, or I can go home and watch Netflix by myself. Don't worry about it.
Right, and so I help kids on a regular basis.
I see. Okay, this is where my age is gonna kick in, because I think you know me well enough. I'm a bit sexist. I think I'm old school. I'm very old school on male-female relationships.
Oh, sure.
We had something come up today. I was like, I'm not meeting with that person by myself. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know where you're going to go with this, but I'm going to let
I
you all know that my door is always open.
Sure, we've talked about that. Your door is open, but I would just feel like uncomfortable.
Oh yeah,
like giving a 16-year-old girl advice of like, don't listen to me. This is just me talking, but like maybe you need to go talk to Miss Jocelyn down in the next
100%
classroom.
And these girls also just I was like this isn't like hot tea that's like
right.
coming or whatever. Like that's not the conversation we're having. And I'm also very much like, I'm like, no, like, I don't need to know about that. Like, I'm like, no, but it's all good. You can tell me how your day was, though, or, like, your weekend, that kind of stuff. But, okay. So, all that to say is that I will be helping out teenagers on a regular basis. I was like, it's my job.
It's a heavy job.
And I know that there's people out there that, John Brogan, who say that, we don't get a paycheck or whatever for helping kids out, or that kind of stuff.
Wait, what does that mean?
He said it about youth ministry, where he's like, there used to be a time where youth ministry wasn't on the payroll and people just did it out of the goodness of their hearts. And so yes,
there was a time where teachers got paid to teach math and grammar, but now you're basically glorified social worker. So no, I mean I'm serious. The job is much bigger than people imagine, I think.
It is much bigger.
And I think the job's much bigger. The average person wants the average person wants the teachers that they send their kids to teach them to be competent.
I think it's just like a lot of jobs where it's like it can be as demanding as you make it, and it can also be as minimum as the job description says.
Okay, well, high school is a little different. In talking to the K through 8 or 9, those jobs are much more still involving like social worker, and I think the expectations are unreasonable because parents are wanting their kids to be proficient at all these things. Like,
well,
yeah,
and
okay, that'd be great.
I still make the argument that technically what their job description is not how much those elementary school teachers go above and beyond for everybody's kids. Those people are insane, and we take that completely for granted with how much they go over the top for K through 8 students. It is insane. I kid you not. Like, there is no part of me in my being. I love teaching. And it's not about it, when I think about going down to the K to 8 level, it's not about a drop in the pay grade. It's not about I don't think I'll work well with that age range. I was like, I could probably do just fine with 5th graders. 5th graders would love the hell out of me. 6th graders would love the hell out of me. The issue is there is so much expectation that people have for elementary school teachers, and they don't understand the amount of work that teacher is doing on a regular basis.
That's what I mean. But the work is not just the classroom work. It's dealing with basically...
Right, but I mean, their job description is literally just teach the
That's
standard.
Exactly my point.
They could do exactly what, but what I was saying was when you say take high school, they could do exactly what the high school teacher does that doesn't do jack shit and just covers the fucking standard. But that wouldn't fly because parents are so involved in their elementary kids' education or whatever, and they're gonna hound the principal, and principals at the elementary school are fucking anal. They are like
yeah,
lots of love. I have friends that are elementary school principals, but like they're like, yeah, submit me your lesson plans every single week, and you know, blah 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 blah. Do this and do that.
I still say though, I think parents have this again. What they want is a kid who's proficient in something. But what they really demand when they start saying all the things is what they want is a babysitter on top of being a teacher.
Sure, yeah.
And by the time they get to high school, even if, to be perfectly judgy, they're still an absent parent. It's like, they're in high school. They're getting... Those kind of parents are like, getting towards high school. They're an adult. They can do whatever they want, blah, 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 blah. There's less and less expectations of what the kid's supposed to do. And so... But even for you, there's, you've got kids who might live in a house where the parents could give two shits what the kids are wanting to do, but the kid wants to get out of the house or go on to college or junior college or something, and there's still a level of social worker of how to navigate this, how to deal with this, still being respectful to the parents so it doesn't feel like you're being undermining of however they're running the household. And so I say this. I had parents who taught. Now they didn't teach in public school, but I mean, I wasn't clueless to how teaching went through most of my life, and yet it only became apparent to me in the last 2 or 3 years how the job. I mean, one of our friends just flat out said, "Yes, you're wrong." The job about 10, 15 years ago became like social worker, and that's just the world you want to exist where teachers just teach just doesn't exist. You're basically barking at the moon. And so I don't think a lot of parents actually internalize that. They internalize it as the teacher's not doing what I want the kid to do. That's the thing. Even middle class parents are wanting their kid their teacher to be a social worker, where the social workers are like, yes, you have a 9-year-old boy. He's stuck in a junior high or whatever age group. You got a junior high boy. He's stuck in here. One, he's a boy. He's trapped in a class, which is antithetical to being a boy at that age because they just run around and blow shit up and jump around and stuff like that. And then on top of it, when he goes home, you're letting him play video games. So you're not feeding into anything that's conducive to some kind of like cohesive ability to concentrate.
Right.
And now it's all my fault. Like, why is my boy not concentrating? Well, he's an 8-year-old boy. We need to put him on drugs. Well, maybe not. What do you do at home? He plays video games. Okay, maybe that's a problem. What do you feed him? Mountain Dew and sugary stuff. It's just, there's no... We foisted professional parenting too much on teachers, which is well beyond what the pay grade is. But as my teacher friend said, yeah, it's well beyond the pay grade, but that the reality is that's what it is. And in some instances, it's not absent parents. It's because parents are, particularly in our area, they're new or recent immigrants, or they're just poor, and they're busting ass and they're out working all the time.
Right.
There's no one home. You've got a junior in high school, a boy or a girl who's literally taking care of 5 or 6 other kids that range down to second grade. On top of trying to get his or her grades in order to quote unquote go to college or junior college. It's like, yeah, that you're in the master's degree for growing up if you can accomplish all that. Which people have, but still, you're putting one arm behind someone's back while they're trying to do stuff and be a kid. And my concern always is when kids are forced to be adults, at some point adolescence comes out. And this isn't just a poor kid thing, because there were kids that I grew up with where that parents drove. They were the kids that I graduated with. And I could tell at home, parents drove him. All of their entire day was cello classes and then sports and this, that, and the other. And I remember at an early age being like, at some point you're going to rebel.
Right.
And that rebellion might be 28 or 32. With an early no, I'm serious. With an early onset of, midlife crisis or something of like, I am done I've been an adult my entire life. I'm done with it. And now I'm making money. My life is fairly set. I'm a professional. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go start fucking drinking and doing coke and sleeping with whoever I can sleep with. Because I'm tired of someone telling me what to do all day.
Right.
And that's the problem with over managing children. At some point you have to let them be like, I want to be free and experience the world and make mistakes.
Yeah.
So let them do it either at 15 or they're going to do it 25 or 35. On the downside of the second marriage. All right, beer number 3, the Coup de Grace.
We have Rotu Hills
Cannot go wrong with this
56.
one.
The Study of Simcoe. This is the pale ale from Russian River Brewing Company. If you don't know by now, we're in love with Russian River Brewing Company. This is a 5.4% alcohol pale ale. How is it?
It's so good.
I haven't had it yet. I'm still finishing my Cooler Than Cool. What personal qualities do you want to strengthen this year?
My ability to say the F word. No. Well, I need to soften some of my edges at work with some of the people that work for me. So that's the one. I'm not apologetic about it. I'm not going to change the way I do it. I'm very direct in how I work with people. I despise people who kind of bumble around and like, you don't need to be rude about it, but just if you got a problem, tell me what your problem is. Workplaces seem to be infected by an inability of people to be honest with folks. And I don't mean like, you're 20 pounds over fat. I'm just keeping it real. I don't mean that kind of stuff, but just, you got a problem? Tell me what I did wrong, that kind of thing. This is how I this is what I have expectations as. You screwed up, you screwed up. Now it's time to move on. And a lot of people aren't used to that kind of communication style. And so a lot of people who work for me kind of bristle at it and think I'm kind of mean. So I want to soften it a little bit without sacrificing being direct.
Nice.
Because I don't think... Look, I'm a big fan of Steve Jobs, and Steve Jobs is one of the great dicks of all time. But he was also somebody who clearly communicated what standards were, and nobody deviated from those standards. And I think there's some truth to that of, some people get bent out of shape because you hold something as a standard that they don't, and they're like, well, you're just being an asshole about it. No, this is the standard. This is what we hold ourselves to. We're going to do it. I'm going to call you out for it. And so I want to work on continuing to do that without scaring people off or thinking I'm a jerk.
Yeah, I want to do the exact same thing. I want to do that in my coaching position is more where it is. I feel like I have that kind of on lock in the teaching realm where it's just
Sorry, if you're listening, you hear Russell in the bathroom. It's the dogs tussling.
I think that in my classroom, I'm already pretty good at the standard, but as to what is achievable for them, but for as a coach, really just setting that bar there, and this is the standard, and trying to achieve it, where it's not I'm being a dick or whatever. And again, it's through the evaluated process. I've looked at the team and I've sat there and I've said, hey, this is the potential that we can reach, but you have to reach it. If you're going to sit there and you're going to give anything less than your best, then you're fucking sacrificing a gift. Shout out Steve Prefontaine. But I mean, like, that's what I'm saying is that...
We need to do a Steve Prefontaine. There's 2 Steve Prefontaine movies. We need to do
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I saw those when I was like really young, and I was asking my dad questions about it. And I was like, what the heck is going on?
One's Jared Leto, I think, in like one of his first movies.
I had a Steve Prefontaine poster in my class, or not in my class, on my wall growing up. It was the Nike ad that said, "Where's the next Pre?" And
I had one too, and I wasn't even.
It's the famous photo where he's looking back at Oregon Stadium and he's got his hands out like this, and
no, exactly that.
And
photo.
there's nobody behind him.
Yeah.
And
that's the mentality that informs you and me, and I think so.
Well, and I used to put that on my binders all the way through, from junior high all the way through high school. As soon as they started making us put quotes on our binders or whatever, I always put, to give anything less than your best is a sacrifice, a gift. And I believe that 100% about what it is that my kids do in that pool, or whatever it is that my kids do, is like, you've been given this life and you should do everything you can every single time that you go out and do something. Why not go 100%? I know that it's cool to sit there and be like, oh, like, like I didn't have to try and like I could do all that. And it's like, no, you go out there and you give 100% every single time that you go out there. Because every time that you don't do that, you've been given this moment. Every moment is a gift. And so therefore, you need to do something about it. And like, we don't recognize that. It's like, whatever. Like, if I could sit there and just like, make it look casual or whatever, and it's like, no, you need to make it look like you gave your fucking all, because that's what you did, And I'm like, don't get me wrong, I'm not asking for showboating or anything.
No, I was gonna say that's the problem is it's 2 extremes. It's like, it's either kind of laissez-faire, like I just went out and did this with no effort, or it's, I make a pass that I'm expected to do, and it's just like, and it's the big dance or the whatever because somebody scored and they scored on my goal, and it's like, pipe down. I'm an old man when I watch football games in particular, but even basketball games, just like the game's not over. Shut the hell up, move along. I mean, or European football, just like the game's not over. Shut the hell up, move along. You want to celebrate like that? Celebrate after the game. And what's so odd is the celebration after the game is just so like, whatever. It's like, save the bravado that you did before for after the game.
So so two things on that. One, I 100% like, or I believe in the whole thing of, but this is what's been trained in me. So it's not necessarily, and for anybody that sits there and says, well, you've never played on the professional level, or you've never even played on the collegiate level, and it's like, okay, that's fair. I don't know what it feels like in those moments or whatever. And also, just so we're clear, I fully understand that that's not what sells tickets. I know that. But I still think on some level, when you catch a touchdown pass or you do whatever, you make a 3-pointer. Act like that's the shit that you do every day.
That is literally that is such an old man. Yeah, I completely
I'm like,
agree.
just act like that's the shit you do
this
every day.
This is what I do all the time.
Yeah, act like it's no big.
Right.
Like, but they make such a huge display of it, and it's like, dude, fucking make it seem like you do that before you freaking wake up in the morning.
Yeah,
like,
I've done. Yeah, exactly.
That's a huge part of mine. The soccer thing. So I think the soccer thing leans into more of the goals in soccer are.
I know where you're going with this, and it's fair.
I'm not saying that they're rare, but they're
hard to come by. On average, it's 2 or 3 a game, probably.
Yeah, and that's a 90-minute game, and that it may be 2 or 3 a game, but you may not see one for another 5, 6,
Correct.
7 games.
Correct.
And so that's where.
And I think that's the problem with the American mentality.
Well, but
that's why hockey's the great actual sport is because those guys. I mean,
score all the time.
The hockey guys are no. The hockey guys are much more like soccer players, and NHL players are the lunch bell players. It's like I scored a goal. I'm gonna do like the skate in the middle with the fist pump twice, and then I'm gonna be mobbed by my team. But there's no like money in the corner or something. It's very much still the team sport.
You obviously did not watch the Sweden versus United States.
I did not. You keep telling me about this.
I'll start spamming you with
NHL hockey is the working. It's the blue collar sport, and if you don't like it, it's fine. But anyway, I don't like the celebrating for the very same reason. It's like act like you've been here before. Like you made a 3-pointer, or you scored a touchdown. That's what you're paid to do. You're paid a lot of money to do it, or you do it on a regular basis. How do we get?
No. That was
we get down that rabbit hole?
That was from the Steve Prefontaine, where it's this idea of you give anything less than your best and you sacrifice a gift. And so, even if you're giving it all, we don't need to gloat in our achievements or whatever, that kind of stuff.
Yes, it is killing it today at whatever you do. So in my business, it's. I get, when we go out and photograph an event, I have to get what's called a credential. I have to get a piece of paper or piece of plastic that says that person can be on the sideline, take that photo. And what I want every photographer that goes out and photographs for me is I'm going to figure out a way to photograph this game better than I did yesterday and do the same thing every day. And if I get a great photo, it's not like, oh, great, I think this is where it bugs me with the sports. If I have a photographer, or even on the limited basis where I go out and shoot, if I go get something that's like, wow, I nailed that, then how do I take that to the next level?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, even if you're like Steph Curry, and he's not one who like celebrates crazy, which I think is one reason why he's really liked. So, okay, if you're Draymond Green, who's a crazy person.
He does a little shoulder.
He does
shimmy.
How do you take that to the next level? And there's certainly there are great players who's like,
Did
all
you
right.
say Draymond Green? He celebrates by stepping on people. I don't know. What
Well,
you're
that's
talking
true.
about.
Well, I brought him up for he's a sociopath. That's the Prefontaine thing of, yeah, I just crushed somebody in a race. How do I crush them by another couple seconds in the next race?
Yeah.
And not in a way where we're like destroying people. It's just like it's not it's not for the purpose of destroying your enemy or your rival. It's just like,
No, but it's about every time that you go out and do something, do it to the best of your ability.
right. It might be how do I improve myself by another 4 seconds? And my top rival, my Finnish rival, they better themselves by 4 seconds. Like and a Prefontaine would have been like, okay, yeah, I ran 4 seconds faster, and my Finnish competitor raced 4 seconds faster, and he'd be mad as hell and like, how do I get 2 more seconds after what I just ran?
Well, and again, that was like one of the things about Eric Little,
Yes.
where it was like, again, when I'm out there and I'm doing my best, I feel God's pleasure. Where again, I'm out there and I'm doing all that I can, and I'm giving. And again, you watch this motherfucker run; it's like the ugliest fucking man on the planet.
It's like a windmill.
I was like,
it's
how
like
did
a
you
special needs kid doing a windmill.
How did you feel God's pleasure in that? Right? But it was something. It was something special. And all of us have the ability to do something special. Even like it doesn't have to be the Olympics or, you know, being the greatest runner from the University of Oregon who tragically dies in a car accident or whatever. You know,
Well, my
like, that's
wife, my wife's in charge of a department of like 6 or 8 women, because she's in education and women gravitate towards education.
What?
She is intentionally going out of her way to make that office, that workplace better, so that these women feel like they have like a family within the workplace on a regular basis.
Yeah.
It's not hard to find people who are competent at work. It's easier to find people who are competent at work. What's harder is to find people who are competent to do the work and fit within an environment. And so my wife as a boss is like, I don't want to just find someone who can do the work I want them to do. I want them to make this place a good work environment to work with, where people can feel like they're growing professionally, and it's family at work, so it's not a chore and all that, and it's not, so wherever your job is, if your job is, you're listening to this and your job is collecting carts at Target or whatever, and you're feeling sorry for yourself, sorry, get over yourself. Collect carts better than anybody at Target.
Yeah.
And do it joyfully. Every person when you're collecting your carts and some mom or just tattooed dude is like got their cart, just look at them and joyfully say, hey, I'll take care of your cart. Whatever you're doing, do it joyfully, do it better, and continue to do it better. And from a not only Christian standpoint, but from a business standpoint, like work experience, life experience, if you take that tact on, you're going to move up and you're going to move up and you're going to move up. At some point, someone's going to see like this person's responsible. They throw everything into what they're doing. And so just do that.
Yeah, 100%. And so that's something that I really want to work on, or as far as a personal quality that I want to strengthen this year. 44, what skills do you want to learn this year? Any skills you want to learn this year?
Learn?
Do you need to think about it? I was like, I can tell you mine.
Yeah, you go ahead.
So this one's kind of fun because I actually, for a long time, I've actually been learning skills steadily. I was like, you're laughing.
I have what? Well, I'm wondering where you're gonna go, and then
I've been learning skills And not like in the Napoleon Dynamite sense where I've got nunchuck skills, that kind of stuff. But in all seriousness, I was like a couple years ago, one year I had just decided, like, I was like, I'm gonna learn the ukulele, and I'm not an expert at ukulele playing, but I can play any pop song that you want, because again, it's only 4 chords, but I've got the strum pattern and I can do all that kind of stuff where it's like I can do all that kind of stuff.
But if
where
there's a fire, I'm gonna grab that ukulele from you and throw it in the fire.
So I can do. There's just been things where it's like there's skills that I've acquired over the years, and I don't even care if they were just like a fleeting second whim where it's just like out of nowhere I just got this hair up my ass that I wanted to do this or whatever. I love that. It's kind of a weird personality trait. Luckily, none of mine have been super expensive as to whatever it is that I want to do. I keep telling my wife that at some point I'm going to try and learn how to do the piano. I already know how to read music and all that kind of stuff, so it's like I just need to learn how to do the piano and then go from there. But it all depends. I mean, I know how to play 3 instruments, which most people don't know about me.
I don't know this.
I know. So the ukulele,
No, that doesn't count.
bitch.
I don't know how to play. It counts.
I was like, you
don't
could
know
say
how
that. You could say that. I'd bring my ukulele in here, and you'd be like, "That's fucking Somewhere Over the Rainbow," which is the most popular.
Sure, I could sing that. We could do that as a closing.
I could play "With or Without You" by U2. I could name a pop song, and I can play it for you. It's not the same 4 chords in a row, and it's not the same strum pattern, but I could do it for you. Like I was like, I just can't do like really intricate things. Is basically what I'm saying. So I was like, but I can play. If you gave me the notes, I'd be able to play any song. Like, I know how to play that. I know how to play the bass guitar, and I also know how to play the trumpet. I grew up playing the trumpet from 4th through 7th grade. So, I was like, I can sight read music and do all that kind of stuff. So, you learn skills as you go along. I know these are weird things. I wasn't a band kid. I didn't do any of I didn't do marching band or anything like that. Fucking nerds. But I
degenerate nerds too, from what we learned from American Pie.
Yeah, I've never seen American Pie. I really haven't. So, but yes.
Last year at band camp.
But just so we're clear, what Tim is talking about, one of my teachers in high school called them bandcestuals because like he was just like they all date each other and they're into freaky shit.
Okay, well, you know, art mimics reality, so
if you got your kid in band, just giving you a heads
just so you know,
up.
that trailer's not just for the instruments.
And I gotta be honest with you, right now, I don't know what my skill is that I want to learn. So, but I am telling you that by the end of this year, I will have learned something new. So, like last year, one of the skills that I learned, and this may not seem like super enticing to all of you, but it was actually something that was really fun for me. Was I actually learned how to do. I played a video game. I started playing a video game in August, and I learned how to be actually pretty good and competitive in that video game, and that was a lot of fun for me because it actually takes lots of hours of practice to be good competitively at this particular video game, and so I'd spend I wouldn't spend hours. Well, I mean, I would spend hours, but not like a day. I would spend hours a week. So it's like, okay, so when I would go on and do my video game time, I'd spend an hour, hour and a half, and then the next day an hour and a half, and the next day an hour and a half working on combinations and doing all that kind of stuff and working through how to do better and better and better. And I spent like 2 or 3 months on it, and to where now I'm pretty good at it, where it's like yeah, I feel like that's a skill that I definitely developed this year. Where actually it's meaningless to the rest of the world. To where I'm like, yeah, I can do this really weird. I was like, I was like, if you try to explain to aliens what it is that I'm doing, I'd be like, yeah, well, I'm able to do this really weird thing with my thumb and and my fingers, to where I'm able to have this thing input and output on the screen better than other people. And they'd be like, what?
In the grand scheme of things, that's really no different than mastering like the piano, because you're going to play it in front of
100%.
So
But
that's kind of a 21st century, like, oh, that's not a real skill. Sure, playing a piano in the parlor with like the rest of the family is not really in that, so whatever.
But I'm actually envious of the people that are able to do that, because they can sing Piano Man with the rest of their family and just like freaking like go to town on it.
Tiny Dancer or
Well, I say Piano.
Sweet Caroline.
I say Piano Man because if you've seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I think the second season opens.
I've seen the second season, but I don't remember that episode.
Is it the second season, or maybe it's the third season? It opens with Peralta went on special assignment with Inside the Mob or whatever, and there's a scene where he's singing Piano Man with like these mobsters or whatever, and one of the way, and he shows that he betrays one of the guys that he was singing Piano Man with, and the guy's like, wait, you were a cop the whole time? But we joled together. And it's a great bit.
That was a great show.
So any skills you want to learn this year?
Well, you and I have talked about brewing this year, so we need to...
yeah, let's do it.
We need to commit to doing the Go to Hell IPA.
We have to say bottles, though. That's one of the things that people talk about with... I was like, we're going to rip off...
Yeah, like we have that problem.
We're going to rip off labels. We just got to rip off labels.
Yeah,
and
it
then,
looks like we need to start buying a lot more Racer 5 and we'll be fine.
And then we also got to figure out how to cap them as well.
You buy caps, and there's a capping machine. This can all be worked out.
Oh, okay.
I think it's actually part of our friend Brett's
I was like, now... All right.
kit. I need to go over Christina's...
I was like, now Tim has told me the skill that I'm going to learn this year, so I'm excited about this.
It's so somewhere in the fall we'll release the Go to Hell Worse Than Ass IPA, because I'm sure our first go at it will be terrible. Although I have a few recipes, so we can start with that. So unless we just botch the process, they should turn out okay.
Wait, when are we getting that thingamajig where we're gonna like get all of our beer paid for or whatever by the government?
Oh, I need it. Well, that requires money to also do.
Oh,
so.
yeah. Because I was like, because we could also go down to Ballast Point and they could just,
We go to Ballast Point and then White Labs and get...
that we could get the yeast. I was like,
Yeah.
because the Ballast Point in San Diego, there's one where they actually encourage you to brew beers, and so you can go and you can taste beers. So it's a tap room. It's the one over by USD.
Well, I did inform my wife 2 days ago that we will be embarking.
You're not going back to back. Did Nolan call you?
No.
Did Nolan call you? You
No.
have one weekend break.
Okay, well, I told her we were going back to back, but I also told her that we were going to do the San Diego 5K walk this year. And she said, "Oh, you are going to San Diego?" And I said, "Apparently we are." So, but at this time it's a 5K walk instead of a marathon. So
The marathon's every 5 years.
this year we're just gonna hit 5 or so breweries in a leisurely
And just get trashed there
in
instead.
a leisurely manner.
Yeah, just not walk anywhere.
I'll still sleep on the floor and get water tortured at 4 a.m.
It's like if I could get commitment that people are actually, because what it was always just gonna be us two until randomly it's gonna be 4. Oh, okay. 45. How will you take care of yourself this year?
I think I talked about the last time. I need to exercise more. So
Are you gonna stop smoking?
You're bringing okay. So I said in previous, I think I might be done smoking cigars, and then last Friday, a couple days ago, I showed up at Kuya with cigars. No, I'm not. I'm gonna keep so. I'm gonna smoke cigars in moderation.
I was like, he's gonna dial it back.
Um,
That's also how I'm gonna take care of myself this year. Is I'm gonna dial back on the alcohol. I think 2023 was a rough year for me in alcohol. And you may listen to this podcast and you're like, are you dialing it back on the alcohol? You've had your third beer this evening. But if I keep that to 2 nights a week,
well, let's be transparent with everybody. So the last episode we recorded, I don't know if it's gonna be the last episode that you listen to. We kind of got ahead of ourselves. We got into it. We were having a good time.
it's like a 4-hour episode.
It was
so.
it was a long episode, and we weren't drinking anything. It was like 8-9%, but we got deep into the episode, and I went and grabbed another round. It was like 4th or 5th beer, and Colton drove home.
This is the 5th beer.
5th beer. The last beer we had was a pale ale, like 5%, but Colton drove home. I still had another beer after we recorded, but I was thinking, man, I should not have grabbed. He had to drive home. I should not have done that last round. We should have been done. So, last couple of days we've done a pact where we're going to limit what we drink over the show, just because we like our beer, but we need to
Be responsible.
Be responsible. So
Yeah, and I also need to be responsible to my health. And I mean, like, this has been something that's been slow burning for a while. Where it's just like, yeah. And I had talked about it on this podcast before, where it's like, yeah, I'm not going to keep stuff at my house. And that's what's best for me. I do enjoy drinking here. I do enjoy drinking on Fridays. And there's events that happen on Saturdays where I don't mind drinking. And actually what's good about those now is that because I don't have beer at home, I don't have to feel guilty about those experiences out there. Where I didn't necessarily feel guilty about them before, but it was just like, oh man, like, I was like, man, I got buzzed like 3 or 4 nights in a row, where it's like, okay, like, dude, you can't keep doing this to your body and that kind of stuff.
I think also the drinking at home desensitizes you. So you're like, I had like 4 beers the other night, and I had 4 beers when I was fine. And then until you go out and you have like 4, 5, 6 beers, and you're like, I'm good. This is what I did at home. It's like,
100%.
yeah, I'm perfectly fine at home.
100%. Well,
But
and
not really sure if I should be driving like this.
It's not healthy. It's not healthy. Like, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not good for you. That's not what our body was meant to do.
No, and we don't drink to get drunk, although sometimes we do, to be perfectly honest. But that's
on,
not.
I mean,
but
but
that's not why we drink. We drink because we like it, and we like the flavor, and we like different.
Well, and I mean, and I think to be transparent with our audience, I was like, I've been honest about my anxiety issues that I've experienced in the past. So last year around this time was really rough for me, and I did view alcohol as a way to not go back on my meds, where it was like I was worked up. Every single day I'd come home from work, I was very stressed. I was very much worried about my job, and so it's like you drink 3 beers and you don't care. Like, it was
Right.
it was like, okay, I can wind down. This will help me go to sleep. Like, I'm not gonna sit there and spin these false stuff about my world, and I actually went to therapy about it, where again, like, it was about, hey, like, I don't really feel like I should be doing this. And my therapist was like, well, you need to be honest about what it is that you're drinking for. Then I think it was like, okay, yeah. And I did that challenge last year, where I said from winter break through spring break, I was only going to drink socially. But the hard part about drinking socially for me was on Fridays we would drink beer. Saturdays friends would invite me over for whatever, and we would drink beer. Tuesdays we would drink on the podcast, and then Wednesdays we would do trivia night. So 4 out of the 7 nights a week, I'm sitting there downing at least 3 beers.
Yeah.
So it wasn't good for me. So one of the things that I'm doing to take care of myself this year is we're greatly limiting that, and I'm not even putting a timestamp on it. Where before it was like, okay, I'm gonna go 11 weeks, and that was actually a pretty substantial amount of time. Where I'm gonna go 11 weeks. It's not like 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever. I'm gonna go 11 weeks without buying beer to keep at my house. I'm gonna do. So right now there's no timestamp on it, and it's just I'm just not putting beer in my household. Like it's not good for me. There's exceptions, like I think that you need like they talk about the cheat day, but I mean like a legitimate cheat day, not just like every week there happens to be a cheat day or whatever. And that's been true so far, where it's just like, we had the holidays and that kind of stuff, where it's like, okay, on Christmas Day I can have a beer or two. The day before New Year's Eve, on New Year's Eve I can have a beer or two. That's not that big of a deal, but I really want to try to make myself into a social drinker again, where it's just like, I really only drink when I'm around friends, and we had talked about this.
Yeah.
So, but it's best to help me take care of myself. So, 46. Any places you want to visit this year?
Any places I want to or will?
Yeah, it says what places do you want to visit this year?
Well, of course, Sonoma and Las Vegas and San Diego.
Ventura?
No.
You heard it here first, Nolan.
Maybe fit in a slow Paso trip, but I think that's about all I'll get in this year. I'm hoping maybe the year after I can go back to Kenya, go back to Nairobi, and visit Scotland, but that's not going to happen this year.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So in my lifetime, I have 3 big places that I want to go. Well, 4 big places, I guess, that I want to go to. None of those are happening this year, so they're not worth even considering. San Diego and Sonoma is pretty much the only places that I really want to get to. If we're talking about big, long-term plans, I really, really love Japanese culture. I've studied it for a long time. I had a history teacher in junior high who was a history teacher in Japan, which was a lot of fun. So I have a lot of love for the continent, or not the continent, but the island of Japan. I would love to see it. I want to experience that place. I have convinced my wife that that's possibly one of the places that she definitely wants to visit. So that'll be fun when we finally do that trip. There's there. Second place on my list that I definitely want to visit is New Zealand. I just want to see the hobbits. That's really what it is. I just want to see where the hobbits lived. So I know that there's not a ton of things to do in New Zealand, but
Oh, no, that's not true.
hey, I don't know.
New Zealand has all of the different, it's got desert, it's got snow-capped mountain, it's got all of it.
So New Zealand's one of those. The other 2 are my heritage, or my family lineage is from Scotland. And I don't feel extremely tied to that or anything. I don't tell people that I'm Scottish. If people ask me what my heritage is or where I'm from, I always say American, or I'm from Oklahoma. Because, and then they're like, no, really, where are you from? And I'm like, you mean 300 years ago? Where am I from? Like, and I feel like that's a question that's born out of people that are from a place where they only have to go 1 or 2 generations back. And I'm like, listen, I've got to go like 8, 9 generations back, 12, 15 generations back before I'm back in Scotland. And I'm like, I was like, so yeah, I'm Scottish.
I don't get the whole I'm this and that. Even if it's like
I'm
one or
more
two.
fucking Native American than I am Scottish, and we've been over
I just
that.
the Philadelphia Eagles coach has a little Italian flag on his shirts and sweatshirts he wears because he's Italian by ethnicity. Look, it doesn't bother me that he's got that on there. It just doesn't resonate with me. It's like, who cares? Like, you're an American. You know nothing about Italy. Who knows? He might know a lot about Italy because his family's still very Italian. I don't know, but I just don't understand the whole. We have this strange dichotomy in the United States right now where you're not allowed to be nationalistic. To be nationalistic basically means you're like a racist. But we're also supposed to be overly attached to whatever country of origin we came to. And I'm like, what's the difference? Let's just like, yeah, all right. So, yeah,
So I don't.
half of my family's Finnish. The other half is Scots, Irish, and English. It's like, all right, I'd like to go to Finland, but it's not out of some sense. Like, there was a commercial I saw of somebody saying, I don't remember who it was, but it was over the weekend, I think, during a football game, and somebody was saying, like, I didn't fully understand I know who it was. It's a commercial for Giannis. I don't know. I can't say his last name. Giannis.
Antetokounmpo?
Yeah, for the
Greek dude?
for the Milwaukee Bucks, who's
the Greek
Greek, but he's also African American black. And there's this commercial out there where he's talking about how I won't know who I fully am until I explore where I came from. And I'm like, that's the biggest bunch of postmodern bullshit I've ever heard. You are who you are. It doesn't matter where you came from. You're a 7-foot something exceptional athlete who excels, who I would hope is a very nice man and a good friend and whatever. That's who you are. It's not where you came from. Where you came from might be interesting. It's not like it's meaningless, but it's a post note to what your life is.
Yeah. Yeah, so I say, and again, I don't have huge attachment to Scotland, but I would like to see Edinburgh. I think that
I've been once and I'm dying to get back. It's phenomenal. It's wonderful.
I would love to see Scotland. And I mean, like, there is still some connection. There's still that pull where it's just like, yeah, I'd kind of like to see that area and that part of the world. And I also include within that trip, I'd like to see the UK, just as a whole. I mean, I'm a huge soccer fan, and I'd love to go to Manchester and watch my team play. I'd love to see London and all that kind of stuff. Again, from an English perspective of go see the library in Edinburgh, go see, go see Oxford, go see Cambridge, go see the Globe Theatre, where it's now, don't get me wrong, those are staples of imperialism, but also at the same time they're staples of the English language, and also, go pub crawling. Who doesn't want to do that?
There's good and bad with every empire, and the British Empire is, it's brought order and law and all kinds of things. It's got all kinds of problems that go with it. And there, having said, I don't understand this like affinity to I'm Finnish or whatever. I want to go see that because it informs me. There is something to be said, like if you're an American Christian, it doesn't really matter if you're evangelical or not. American Christianity is very much informed by Scotland. The Christianity that came, the Reformation that came particularly out of Scotland informed a lot of Christian thought in the United States. And so, if you want to go do that tour in that way, and even beyond that, just the Enlightenment also, the Scottish Enlightenment also informed secular ideas as well. So if you have that kind of affinity for how we think and how our Christianity is, go do the Scottish tour, and it's just gorgeous. So,
Well, and the fourth place for me is, and this is kind of funny, and notice that neither Tim nor I ever said.
We didn't say Israel.
no,
Um,
And I don't know. Have you ever been?
no, my parents went once, but I haven't been, and I really have no affinity to go.
I have no problem with going, but it's
I mean, if
not
someone offered it, like it was affordable or it, like worked in my schedule, I'd have no problem going. And I'm sure if I went, it'd be probably amazing to see the things that have been preserved from the New Testament and even the Old Testament and stuff like that. I'm sure it's
but why not?
why I don't have an affinity for it.
Yeah, why not?
Because I think Christianity doesn't fit within those. We're not like
Yeah, what I think Tim.
we're not a ritualistic thing.
No, the fucking temple is here.
Right. And,
Right,
and
where
so
it's
again,
like-
if someone like, if the trip came along where someone said, "Hey, I'll pay for your trip," I'm sure I'd go, and I'm sure I'd find it amazing just to find out how
blast, yeah.
tiny Israel is,
Yeah,
and like,
100%.
oh, it's only this far from Galilee to here, and this is where Jesus actually, whatever. This might be this is what we think the tomb where he, or see how small Jerusalem is, and all that kind of. I totally like the pastor we. At our church has gone and done that trip at least once. I see why pastors do that, but I have like zero affinity. Like, no, I just like, I don't see doing that trip coming back and going like, oh, I feel closer to my faith and everything. No.
I don't think so either, and I don't have a desire to go to see Paul's trail with the Greeks,
No.
and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't. I was like, the last one that I actually had on my list is South Africa. For a long time, I've had just this I've had this desire to go and see South Africa. If you're sitting there and you're like, you know that place is like in the shithole right now. I'm well aware, but also at the standpoint of, hopefully you also thought that to Tim when you were like, you know, Kenya's in the shithole, right? Like, but yeah, there is, for a long time, South Africa has been on my heart. I don't know why. I just feel a connection to that place. I'm not even Dutch. But there's something there where I just want to go. I want to see it. I want to experience it. It's a wild country, and not in the Joseph Conrad term of wild country. I was like, was your comment towards
The text I got.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
go
I was
see it.
like, you were just like, well, your eyes got really big, and I was like, yeah, sorry, I wasn't meaning that. That this was the heart of darkness out there, and freaking. That's not what I'm getting at. It's a wild country as far as like it's, you know, that's where like lots of people do their safari tours or whatever. That's not what I'm looking for.
Right.
Actually, one of the biggest things that I love about South Africa, well, there's two things. One, well, these are mainly jokes, but they're kind of cool things that are about South Africa. One, South Africa has the jumping great white sharks, which is really, really cool. So if you ever watch Shark Week and you ever see the great whites that come up out of the water and eat the seals.
They have those, and then there's the other show where the dude is on rivers.
Oh, river monsters?
River monsters. They also have crazy fish in their rivers.
Yeah, they have crazy fish in the rivers, and actually Huntington Beach had the jumping white sharks for a little bit. There was like a migration that happened
really?
where they came out and so they somehow ended up in Los Angeles during that year of the sharks or whatever. In Huntington that they were calling it, and they came out and they did the jumping, but where the big jumping great white sharks
So they
were,
gravitate towards surfers.
and that's also where my second one is, but Where the jumping great white sharks happened is in South Africa. It's right off of St. Petersburg is where they all do it. And in the summers, they'll come out and they'll jump out. And that's like the big thing of Shark Week that everybody wants to talk about, because they're just like, how does this freaking thing come out of the water? And just because it's an anomaly. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world.
Right.
There's great whites in fucking San Francisco Bay. They don't fucking jump out of
Yeah.
the water. The second one. So we have Shark Week, and then the second thing that's a really cool thing. But again, it's kind of like a joke. But if you've ever seen the Endless Summer surf video or surf movie, the guys that are in that movie talk about their favorite place in the world that they got to surf when they were chasing summer around the world was South Africa. They end up going they go on like a 2-3 mile hike that's like up over these sand dunes, and then they come over the side to this ocean, and they ride a wave for like 4 straight minutes, and all of them are just like, it was insane because the wave was perfect. It was the most perfect waves that they had talked about that they had ever ridden in their lives. And so literally they're just standing there and just like, and the only reason why they fall off is like they just give up on the wave. It's not,
they're done with it.
yeah, it wasn't that the wave ended. It was a perfect wave where it's just this idea of they're just like, they're sitting there, they're doing tricks. They're like, and they had never experienced something before. And if you look at the wave and if you watch the Endless Summer, if anything but Hawaiian waves are like pretty wimpy waves as far as what you've possibly seen in like movies or whatever, where you got these big swells and like, you know, you have the tunnel coming over, and it's like, for the most part during this time of the movie, most people didn't really people were emerging on the surfing scene, and where it's like these guys were groundbreaking, but the waves that they have videos of them surfing are, you're just like, that's it. And they're like, oh, you got to enter the tube, and some guy's like ducking underneath the water, and it looks like he's just getting like bathed. But then you look at Hawaii, and Hawaii has these huge, massive waves, and still to this day, Hawaii has massive waves where, like, you know, people have to they do extreme surfing where a guy pulls you in on a jet ski and you're able to ride.
Yeah, that's
that
what
wave
Laird, what's his name, invented, was the getting towed out to it.
in fucking sane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's Mavericks up off of between Monterey and the Bay Area, which
Yeah.
is a whole other. That's a whole other crazy thing too.
Yeah, and so all
And
that
then
to
otherwise,
say,
it's just chasing big waves that are cyclical around the world.
all that to say, these guys are just chasing summer. And actually what they find out from everybody else, and because again, a lot of people didn't really understand when this movie was being made, that the winters is when you get the massive swells. Why is that? Because the moon is closer to the earth and it's causing greater gravitational pull to cause. So really what you want to do is you actually want to chase winter around the world. So that you should have the endless there should be another surf documentary made in the next couple of years that's called The Endless Winter. But the Endless Summer, again, it was that California idea where it's like the sun's out, it's time to surf. And so there's a really cool thing from South Africa. So that's always been a thing on my mind, where I've always wanted to go to South Africa and see that and all the stuff that's there. But also at the same time, there's a need in South Africa, to say the least, of there's a people in need there, and going out and helping them is something that's crucial to me. 47, what will you say no to this year?
What will I say no to?
Seltzers.
Well, that's absolutely true. What will I say no to? I will say no to voting. I said this in the last episode. I'm not voting. Well, I'm not voting for federal and state. I'm done. for a variety of reasons I won't get into. But I'm not voting. It's all a sham. These are all charlatans, and it's a joke. When the game's rigged, stop playing the game. So I'm just not going to play the game anymore. And part of it's because there's non-Christian reasons why I don't trust either Republicans or Democrats, but there's also, I would say, reasons that I feel are more informed by where my faith is today, like the endless wars and the nonsensical wars of both parties being involved in those two. Just I'm just not voting anymore for these people. It's a waste of my time. And no, you are not obligated to vote. You are obligated to take your voting privilege seriously, but that doesn't mean you have to vote for whoever's on the ballot. That's not how this works. That's nonsensical. And I take my voting very seriously, and I'm going to display my displeasure with everyone who's running by not voting. So that's how that works.
Vote for Jesus Christ every single time.
Just so we're clear, the last two presidential elections, I have voted for Jesus Christ. And my parents have
And
said,
Jesus said, "If elected, I will not serve."
but he is my leader, and so therefore I vote for him.
If nominated, I will not run. If elected, I will not serve.
But yet that is why I vote for him to be my leader every time. In all seriousness, I have voted for Jesus every single time that I voted, and not for some cheesy gimmick or whatever, but again, where it's like, when I look at our country and I look at the issues that we're facing, and when you say what you will say no to this year, this is something that, again, I'll say no to again this year, where I vote for him almost symbolically, where it's like I don't view anybody else to lead me. And again, this comes to our hot topic, which we'll be discussing next week. Is this idea of, you give to God what is God's, we give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and I don't let Caesar take away my happiness. I don't let him take away my joy. And I think that when it comes to voting season, a lot of people let Caesar take away their joy and their happiness.
Absolutely.
And so when I vote for Jesus Christ, it's like I trust for all of these things to be in your hands, and people can laugh or whatever, and they can say that's dumb or that's a waste of a vote, which my parents did say in this last election in particular, which was the Biden versus Trump election. If you don't vote for whoever it is that we want you to vote for, or whoever we want to vote for, then you're just wasting your vote.
I don't agree with that at all. Even if you just wrote in it doesn't have to be Jesus. You wrote in somebody else. It's not a wasted vote. You're voting who you want to vote for. I don't subscribe to the binary idea that it's this person or this person.
The dual party system?
Yeah. I don't agree with that.
It's almost like George Washington said that it would be the death of this country.
Yeah, it's funny it's funny that was said early on. And so no, I don't subscribe to that. And so whether you're Colton and you vote for Jesus Christ and you think it's not, or it's me and you have to vote for somebody. No, I don't. My vote for neither one or the 5 people, including the Jill Stein or whatever moron, also ran a Libertarian Party idiot. No, my decision not to vote while voting for other things is a vote in and of itself. I don't approve of anybody who's been put on the ballot. So I don't have to vote for I'm not required to vote. That's just insane.
Number 48. How will you improve your environment this year?
Oh, environment.
Uh-huh.
That's a vague term.
Your environment.
Well, apparently I'll do it by cleaning up all the bottles that are in front of on the desks around me from all of our drinking. Clean the environment. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm going to improve my environment. I mean, so like right now, so Tim says, I don't know, but yet I see lots of good things on his focus board around him. Again, there's, perfect is the enemy of great. He talks about things that he wants to read. He has his word of the year up there, survive, that kind of stuff. I was like, I'm gonna ask you after this podcast if you got any pictures of Steve Prefontaine in your repertoire, and I'm gonna put a poster up in my classroom that says, "To give anything less than your best is to sacrifice a gift," or just make that quote visible for myself to where it's like that's something that I hope to live my my year by, and to give my students something to live by this year. So.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So that's something that I hope to improve my environment. Just something to see every day where, it's a reminder of what it is that we need to do. Who will you ask help and support from this year?
I gotta be.
Your mom.
No, I think my mom's gonna be asking me for help and support all year. I gotta be trouble. There's an answer to that, but I can't really say. Help and support. I don't know.
I think for me, who I will ask for help and support from this year is, I think I'll continue to ask you for help and support this year. I think that this, like we've talked about on this podcast, where we've helped and supported each other in ways that we will continue to cherish for years to come. And so I hope to continue that this year, where I can ask for something and ask for support and whatever it is that I'm going through, and you will continue to be honest with me and give the best advice that you possibly can, because I do cherish it. So that's something that I'll ask for help and support this year from.
All right.
Number 50. Who do you want to become next year or this year? Last
Who
question.
do I want to become?
Last question. Who do you want to become this year? Darth Vader.
Bradley Cooper. Every year it's Vince Vaughn. I mean, who wouldn't want to be 6'5" lurch, but who's also funny and I don't know.
I want a polka. You want to dance? I want a polka.
I think there's always a desire every year to become more and more of a leader, and by that I don't mean like someone who like has like the
I want to be Billy Graham next year.
not someone who's got like the trappings or the someone that people want to come to. I don't mean it like some august.
You want to be a guru. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, no, that's not what I want. I mean someone who stands up and does the right thing quietly, and people recognize, like, okay, that's what that Tim stood up and did this and did it quietly and didn't call people out who didn't agree, but was an example of what the right thing to do is. And those things come in big moments and they come in small moments. I think oftentimes they come in small moments where people are kind of looking around like, what's the right thing to do? Oh, okay. Yeah, we can do that. Or say the right thing, or we can say that out loud. Are we okay to say that? So, yeah.
I think for me, what I want to become next year, and maybe this is something that I don't know. It's a weird thing to say. I don't. I don't know. I don't know what it is with who I am as a person or whatever. I've had some people who think that I am significantly more judgmental than I am, and it could be possibly because of my actions. It could be based off of their own insecurities. I don't know. But people have disclosed to me that it seems that I am too judgmental on them, and I really, in my heart of hearts, I really don't give it a second thought. But there's something in my visual appearance or something in the things that I'm saying that makes it seem that I am much more judgmental than I am. And so I wanted to try and work on that. I don't know what it is that I have to do there. I'm going to have to do some work, but I don't know. It's something that's been aching at me, and where it's like, I don't want people to think that I'm being judgmental of who they are and what it is that they want to do, because that's not fair to them, and it's really not something that I really intended for them. So that's what I'm hoping to do this year. So.
Wow. So is that it? Did we get through everything?
Justin Timberlake fan.